Are we live? Are we? Hello? Everybody loving on Meegs? Meegs, are you loving on everyone back? We ended the last one with Meegs. We start the next one with Meegs. Let's see. Is this the best frame we got going? I wanted to get you guys a little bit closer to me this week. It just feels better that way, I think. How is everybody? Everybody was chatting up each other in the chat, and then I jump in the room, and then everybody gets quiet, and it makes me feel like maybe people are talking about me. I'm just saying. By the way, oh no! This orange little freak. Are you serious? I recorded a whole damn video in here by myself. He's looking at me like this. By myself. I was in here for a whole hour recording a video and you didn't say anything. But you know when I'm talking to people, this is a problem. I don't want to have to get up again. It's embarrassing to get up in front of the camera. Don't make me do this, dude. Don't make me do it. Sorry, you guys. Don't you dare kick him out. What's funny is that you know how when I do these thumbnails, I usually have a pen. I found another one in here and another one that I just dropped on the floor. You can come up here, but if you're going to get... are we going to sit and talk carefully and gently about Jeffree Star? Probably not, which means I'm probably going to have to kick him out. But I do have notes here. And really, my notes are only to remind me to say, welcome to basically a podcast, which is not a podcast, but it's basically a podcast because I'm not wearing headphones. It is a conversation with my audience. This is a live or a public live event. So whether you're watching in the playback or you're watching live, just know that this is a conversation and there may be tangents and things may be disjointed and my cat may just like ruin everything. Dude, I love you. You're being so calm and cute, but like you're also pressing on the computer and I'm just afraid you're going to hit something. Dude, you guys, you like him? I'm going to try. Let's see if we can get comfortable. See if you can come sit down right here. See, because already he's pressing things and I just can't. I can't, dude. No, you can stay on that side of the chair. There we go. Put a good side on the chair for you. That's a good side for you. Okay, so let's see where we are. I'll give it a second because I know like plenty of you guys are probably here for the conversation and not here to watch me fight with Atticus. Hey, can you get down? What if I ask nicely? Can you get down? Hey, do you think you can get down? Hey, can you get down? Can you maybe get down? Maybe? Can you? Thank you. Okay. Don't know if he'll stay down there, but we'll see. Now he's walking towards the door and he's going to want me to let him out. But we'll see. Here for Atticus, and Atticus only fight. Fight. He would mess me up. So I love him too. He really is really cute and super sweet. I have to be honest. I'm partial to Oliver. You guys know that. Oliver's an old man. I'm allowed to be. But Atticus, if you're going to keep looking at me like that, dude, we might as well just let you out the door. You want to go out the door? Guys, I'm going to have to get up for just a sec. If Ashley's here, hey. I'm going to step up for just a sec and get Atticus out of this room. Come on, Atticus. Come on, Papa. No. Don't do this. Don't do this. Not on my show. Not on my show. Come on. Come on. Out. Good boy. Come on out. Good boy. Straight to the food bowl. Okay. So very professional of me. Here we are. Okay. Is everybody alive still? Dude, you know what would be rude? What would be super rude is if he knocked this cable. What live was it? But there was a cable that got knocked and then my whole live was just gone. So I don't want that happening. So let's see. Yeah, how is everyone doing? Same conversation with your dingo. Wait, do people actually have dingoes as pets? the difference between a dingo and a wallaby? Are they anything similar? That's not what this conversation is about. So, okay, sorry, just checking out the chat. But I need to not do that because like this is a public thing. When I'm doing my Patreon lives, like all I'm doing is reading the chat and responding to everything everyone's saying. But I was talking with my patrons this week about some text messages that they're no secret. They've been out. And I might just go ahead and tweet them now. But I had some thoughts. Let's see what's going on. I had some thoughts after rereading these texts. They were the texts that Jeffree Star sent to James Charles right around the Bi-Sister scandal. You know, he sent James these text messages, and these text messages, I believe, James put on the screen when he came back with No More Lies. And here's something I want to say. Before I share those texts, before I even talk about those texts, I want to be clear. It is possible let's start with the very basics. It is possible for James Charles to be a shitty person and for Jeffree Star to be a shitty person in conjunction. Those two things are possible. It is possible that I'm not saying this is how I feel. I really don't know much about her. It is possible for Tati Westbrook to be a decent person who has done shitty things. What else? It is possible that James Charles is a shitbag, but that he was done wrong in the past. Like, these things can exist. So you guys know this. If you're here, it's most likely because you're capable of holding two thoughts in your head at once. And that we don't look at people as all good or all bad, and then our heads explode when people in two opposing factions both fuck up. It's like, I don't know what team to be on. It's like, you don't have to be on either team, or you can be on either team and still recognize like what's going on. So, yeah, Shane kind of, I lump him in with Jeffree at this point. Tati was probably the least bad out of all four, but I'm not of the camp that believes that she was an innocent party that was just manipulated. And I know that, that gave me some bad mom hair. I know that people, I caught some flack in the comments for something that I said in a video a while back, where I said something like, you know, you're almost 40 years old, or you're 40 years old, and you're claiming that you did this because you were manipulated. And then people are like, that's ageist for you to say, blah, blah, blah. And I get where they're coming from because I mentioned the name, but, and that's also sexist because you wouldn't say that about the men. I would say that about the men. I would. And I would bring up their age. And I think I have said before, like, come on, dude, you're in your 30s. So my argument with Tati was just more like, yeah, it's absolutely possible, 100%, and probable that she was pressured, convinced, and all of these things. But ultimately, we make our own decisions, especially considering that she had to make that decision fighting these fears that she had, right? It's like I compared it to how I've talked about, I can't escape these lives without mentioning her briefly, but kind of like how I've talked to you about how last year's hate mob, I'm trying not to say the name. Last year's hate mob was such an intense and traumatic experience for me that I felt like I was hanging on for dear life to my sobriety. And thankfully I was able to make it through that day sober and stayed sober. And so, but had I relapsed, I would be able to talk about that person's contribution to what led me to that point. But ultimately, that's my responsibility, and it's my decision, and it's my fault, ultimately. So if I don't, I'm not in the camp that completely absolves Tati Westbrook, there's the logic, there's the reasoning. Kind of sets me up for what I was going to talk about. My address is kind of constricting me at this point. There was something else I was going to tell you guys. Oh, I figured that for those of you who show up for basically a podcast, why don't I tell you guys what this week's video is going to be about? Like, I know a surprise is great, but also like you guys show up for this. So why not tell you what I'm filming about? what we're going to be talking about this week. But also, I mean, I would say to get your thoughts on it, but I've already recorded. But it also can explain to you guys sometimes why I say, like, hey, I want to talk about this side of this subject, but not that side of this subject, right? I've thought about yes, I will have to complete that series. I just thought about that. It's weighing on me. Trust me. Show with no name. It is weighing on me. Also, I've got like 2 sips of water left in me. So hashtag water gang, but don't do something that I can't live up to. So, let's see. Rachel says that Tati made her video for selfish reasons. She probably didn't give a shit about James's concerning behavior towards younger guys. Okay, agreed. I think that a lot of people too are equating, and maybe I don't fully understand the situation. So if I don't, feel free to correct me, or like people in the playback wanting to correct me in the comments, go ahead. But I think I don't agree with equating these victims of James Charles right now to the straight guys that James Charles was like pressuring or whatever in at that time, right? So, and everybody be nice to Cassie. I didn't say anybody wasn't being, but just it's a rule. What was I saying? I don't agree with equating the two, because I think at worst, let's assume the worst of James, because the internet loves to assume either the worst or the best of someone. And if we don't like somebody, then that means that in any situation that might have been gray, it is now black. And so at the worst, I think that James Charles very well was possibly using his power. And that is something to keep in mind. He has power in these situations. It's not like he's caught up in a scandal, like, like situation with like Shawn Mendes. It's not like he was like went to Coachella with Shawn Mendes and then all this happened, right? You're not talking to Shawn Mendes. You're talking to some dude who looks like him named Gage Gomez eating his tacky ass tortilla chips. But at worst, James is using his power and just pressuring straight guys to engage in sexual behavior with him, right? But at best in his favor, I guess. Like, it's not good for anyone. But on the other end would be that is it possible that certain guys who have less power and want that power, recognize that power, see that power, like that power, want some of it, have queer baited James and engaged in something or the other that they wouldn't have otherwise done if James weren't who he is. And I am mostly of that camp. I was of that camp before, and nothing new. There was no new information to lead me to believe otherwise, right? Like, this stuff that's happening with minors is not the same as what was happening there. So unless I'm missing something. So everybody keeps saying he won't go to jail, and I've been saying that too, but I'm also wondering, like, at this point, you have 15 people who came out, 9, 10 of them, 10, 16, 10 were minors. I'm wondering at what point, because these boys are coming out with their stories very publicly, surely some of their parents know. So I wonder if any, because ultimately it is up to, like, the parents have the authority to, to take this to court. So I wonder, like, at first I was like, no way, absolutely not. He's a celebrity. But now I'm like, if any of these parents decide to take action, who knows? I mean, somebody, what's this guy's name? Austin Jones. He's in prison, isn't he? Jail. So, yeah, I don't think that the legal system would be hard on him. I think that they would be easy on him. But will he get in trouble legally? Maybe. I don't know. I don't like how my back is hanging out of this dress. Okay. But that's the other thing too, is that he's also got hush money. All of these people do. Like with the Lopez brothers, like now we're getting into this whole discussion, but like, you know how we saw that leaked conversation with the mom of one of the young girls, and she was like, we need to talk now. Like they exposed him with that video, but also we you know what they were meeting up to do. If he didn't end up in court, if they didn't end up in court, but they met up in person to take care of it, you and I know what happened there. So, but anyway, that's getting into a whole conversation about what's going on with James Charles right now, and I wouldn't mind talking about that towards the end, but I want to go back. I want to go back in time to the Bi Sister scandal and what we know about that now, right? Because at the time it was just, man, I'm like parched. Maybe because I filmed right before this. At the time, it looked like all Tati's doing. You know, Tati was upset. Her friend, who like, it feels weird now to look back and be like, can you like really, should you really be treating him as a peer? Like he's less than half your age and you're kind of a mother figure to him. So like maybe you shouldn't be doing this. But, you know, Bi Sister happened. James promoted her direct competitor for her upcoming vitamin company, and she was hurt. Justifiably so. I don't think there's anything wrong with her being hurt by that. But her means of dealing with that was retaliation, and that retaliation was by exposing James Charles and essentially saying James Charles manipulates straight men to act sexually in his favor. And here are the examples that I'm talking about. So that happened then, and James, you know, came back with right away. He uploaded a video where he was like crying, and he was like, I owe an apology to Tati. I owe an apology to her husband, James. I shouldn't have been doing these things, blah, blah, blah. And then later came back with another video that showed all the receipts that really kind of exonerated him and saved his career, which, like, I don't know if that's ever happened before. I don't think any of that stuff is invalid because of what's happening right now. What's happening right now, I've said this before, is new. Like, this couldn't have been happening before because James was 19 at that time. So James being 19 and texting teenagers, 16, 17, like, I don't think I would have to really look into like the laws in California, and really it depends on all the states that these boys are in. But like that's not really much of a scandal, right? So this is all new and it's its own monster, and it honestly it has legs of its own to stand on. We don't need to use Bi Sister and like automatically like make that valid where it was invalid before, and say that like Tati was right, Shane was right, Jeffree was right. Shane said that James needed a slice of humble pie the size of the moon. Yeah, he was right about that. Funny, I also said that too. I think I said it in the history of scandals and controversies. I said that that I didn't agree with what Tati did. I didn't think that it was right what she did, but that it is probably he probably did need a humbling experience. That said, more information started to come out when Tati came forward with her. I don't remember what the video was titled. If anybody remembers, you can throw it in the chat. But her video where she was like clearly reading a script that was like written up or approved by her lawyers, where she talked about how she was manipulated by Shane and Jeffree. And again, like I believe that she was manipulated by them. I just don't think that you can completely blame the situation on that. That's all I'm saying there. What is Bi Sister? Catch me up. It's essentially what I just told you. She had a vitamin company. He promoted it in order to get tickets for Coachella or security or something like that. And it hurt her. And so she came out and she exposed him for, this predatory behavior, I guess is what she was referring to it as. So, and then she came forward here more recently, like about a year ago or so. Yeah, it was last summer, and said like, hey, this is really what was going on. Because this is at a time where like everybody was like, hey guys, Jeffree Star's scary. Like all these YouTubers were like, I'm afraid of Jeffree Star. So around the time that Gabby Hanna said like, hey, if I go missing or if something happens to one of my loved ones, it wasn't an accident. And we're like, what are you talking about, girl? And then Blair White, she said, here's what I know. And if something happens to me, it was Jeffree Star. Jeffree Star went on the podcast Your Mom's Baby with Keemstar, who this week's video is about. I'm meant to tell you guys that. Keemstar and FaZe Banks, and he kept going on. James kept going on about this voice note that he has. He says he has this voice note of somebody who has been a victim of James Charles talking about their experience. And the people who've listened to this voicemail that we know of say that they've heard it, sounds very credible. It's very damning towards James Charles. But also Jeffree is just kind of harboring this and not really doing anything with it. So I've heard Keem is garbage. And I make that known in this week's video. I teared up, actually. Justine Paradise is her name. I think I called her It's Justine. I don't know. But yeah, so then the conversation came up. It was like, why is it that Jeffree Star, he claimed to have all this information, right? He was tweeting about James being a predator. He was saying Nathan has, banned James from our house. He's a danger to society. I've got this voice note. But he's not going to the authorities with it. He's not going anywhere with it. He's not going to the public with it so that anything can be done. And so that part, I do see the link between the two situations where it's like, okay, Jeffree, you knew that James was an actual danger to society, not to straight men who may or may not want clout and like can have some authority of their own, men. But when it comes to teenage boys, like if Jeffree had any idea that he was, that James was some sort of danger to boys, he should have taken action and beyond just like little threats here and there. And now that I'm saying that out loud, I'm starting to think, I don't know if I want to say this later or say it now, but I've seen some headlines that talked about the Davi Vanity situation. And we remember how, this is all theories, by the way, guys. This is a podcast conversation, whatever you want to call it, where we really talk a lot about theories. But I saw a headline about the Davi Vanity situation, and you know how all of us were confused? Because at one point, Jeffree was like, first, he was friends with Davi Vanity and the band members from Blood on the Dance Floor. And then he was like, no, Davi Vanity is a predator, and I have been witness to things happening between him and underage girls, and he is disgusting, and I don't want to. And then later, good friends with Davi. He's like a brother to me. We're like family. Things are great. It's like, well, then what changed there? And then, of course, he did that interview with Chris Hansen where he completely bulldozed Chris Hansen, and so we didn't get anything. But I saw something. I don't remember where I saw it. So this is all alleged. This is all speculation. There's no proof that I have of any of this. But I saw some sort of headline that implied that Davi may have had similar dirt on Jeffree, which would explain a lot. That would explain why all of a sudden they became friends again. That would explain perhaps why Jeffree's not coming forward with this information about James. It could explain a lot of things. So there's one theory for you that perhaps happened. But what I was really concerned about was these tweets. These texts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tweet them. I have them prepared in a tweet. And the tweet says, reference for those watching basically a podcast 4, hit tweet, they are out. So I've got these text messages up. Sorry for those of you who are watching on your phone and you can't, I'm going to read them aloud. So, but if you've got 2 devices, you can go on Twitter and see that I just put the text messages up. So while this was all going on, Jeffree we know that, Shane was like shouting at James on the phone or something like that. Something about or did I say Jeffree? I mean Shane. Shane being awful to James or whatever. And then Jeffree was sending these text messages. And one of them says, or the first one says, how do you sleep at night knowing that you enable and support a predator and a pedophile? Oops, and a schmedophile. Oops, whatever. Hopefully you seek help very soon and get away from that monster. I'm not sure who he's referring to. Maybe he's talking to Tati here. Maybe he says, when he trapped that boy in his hotel room in Seattle and you didn't care about it, I knew you didn't have a soul either. That might have been to Tati. This looks like it's to James from Jeffree. And it says, are you, oh yeah, because the contact name on the first text message has Jeffree with a star emoji. And then the next one just says Jeffree in all lowercase. So this looks like it might be to James Charles. Also funny because the first one, you see that the screenshot has 4 other text messages unread. And then the next one has 296 text messages unread. So you're either person A or person B. I'm person A. Or actually, it's usually 0 text messages unread. But this second text message that I'm assuming is from Jeffree to James says, are you going to respond to everything or pull a Manny 2.0? When you basically trapped Sam in your hotel room in Seattle and psychologically forced him to stay and made him feel horrible for their pennies you spent on the room, I knew something was terribly wrong with you. When Zach showed me the Snapchat messages of you trying to force him to like you and send photos, it was completely horrifying to see you use the same sentences as an R word would use. He was so grossed out by your behavior and the way that you tried to make him feel bad for not reciprocating the same feelings. ... Grayson is going on camera shortly to finally tell the world how you tried to M-word him and touch him in his sleep and made him uncomfortable for months. You sick MF. Next, Zach will be going on camera to tell how twisted and sick you were, trying to get him to like you and then make him feel bad when he didn't want to send you photos back. That is consistent with what's going on lately. Then Sam from Seattle will be joining me and Cameron to talk about you trapping him in the hotel room. You need to be locked in prison for a very long time. You need the internet taken away from you. You are a danger to society. Now, I'm not here to say that Jeffree was wrong about all that stuff. Not at all. But my question is, for one, why did he lay out for James all these things? Oh, thanks, Leah, for letting everybody know. Oh, and thank you for the link, you guys. That helped. I didn't think to put that in here. Thank you. That's why you're a mod. But my question for one, this whole laying out the plan, my evil plan, right? To me, and I wonder if anybody else gets this vibe when this happens, to me screams bullshit. It is exactly what happens in the movies, and I always laugh about it. Especially, I remember the last time I was laughing about it, I was watching Harry Potter, all the various ones, and I'm like, in every single Harry Potter book and movie, at the very end, Voldemort, has Harry trapped in a room, and he was like, this was my plan all along. This is what I did, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what's going to happen to you. And so, of course, then the kids have a heads up on what's going on. And that happens. That's a movie trope that, the bad guy's like, oh, I've got you. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do the other. And it either gives the protagonist a chance to either get out of that situation or they've just incriminated themselves on tape or whatever. And they get sent away to prison for, whatever they were conspiring to do. In reality, I believe that when somebody lays out in detail what they're going to do, I just think that that's bullshit because those things in and of themselves are harmful enough to a person to do more damage without you telling those people ahead of time, especially if you want to hurt that person, right? You don't necessarily want to give them a heads up to try and prevent these things from happening, to try and prepare for their response, or anything like that. If you truly want to have a gotcha moment with somebody that you think that should be locked up, you know, like, why would you go forward and be like, hey, heads up, I want to give you time to like leave the country or whatever, unless that was what he was intending to do. But it's bullshit to me. If somebody is bullying you and is laying out to you exactly what they're going to do, chances are they're not going to do that. I'm curious as to whether anybody else in the chat gets the same vibe when somebody does that. And none of that stuff did happen. None of that stuff happened. Why not? It's because Jeffree's a bullshitter. I'm not afraid of him. So after reading that, though, here's kind of where the thick of these theories comes in. When Tati did her more recent video where she explained kind of everything that happened behind the scenes, she talked about how she didn't want to make the video, the Bi Sister video, or she was very worried about putting it out because James was on. Oh, content warning. I'm going to be talking about the concept of somebody taking their own life and other, mature topics likely will come up, and probably already they have. But yeah, Jeffree, I think Jeffree could pay to have somebody gone, but when somebody does that, they're not going to do the thing they're saying, or else they just do it. That's what it sounds like when someone's all talk. But Tati told us that she was worried. Tati didn't threaten James; she just put the video out. But she was worried because she knew he was in Australia, Japan, Australia. He says that the screenshot was in Australian time zone. So he was overseas and he was on the 55th floor of a hotel. And she was afraid that the video coming out was going to be so traumatic for him that he might off himself, that he might do something irreversible. I don't know why my nostrils get so dry and itchy when I talk to you guys, but I keep like itching this part of my nostrils. I swear to you, like I don't dabble in stuff like that, if that's what you're thinking. Yeah, he was in Australia. So yeah, she still posted the video knowing that what it could do to him, which I don't necessarily think that it's everybody's job to be cognizant of what somebody could do or how it might affect them if it's the right thing to do, if it's the right message to put out. For example, what if he was on a 55th floor of a hotel or whatever, and these boys were like, well, I can't come forward with this story because he lives on the 55th floor. Like, no, like if it's the right message to put out, then you put it out, and it's not your job. It's not your place to worry about what the other person's going to do. But the fact that she was worried that might happen to be in a situation where what she, in my opinion, her video was not necessary, or certainly it was overkill for the situation. The punishment didn't fit the crime. The situation was gummies, vitamins, friendship, loyalty, brand deals. That's what the situation. The video was predatory behavior, pressuring straight men, talking about sucking dick and cock. Like that's what her video became about. And we know that Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson were very much behind, like, this is what you got to talk about. You got to put it out. You got to do it. And then, of course, with these text messages from Jeffree saying, I'm going to do this. After, let me put this in a timeline better. Tati expressed concern that her video, my video, talking just about how you pressured these straight guys, I'm going to put this out and this might push him over the edge. Literally. I'm worried about that. You would think any normal person, if I take 2 or 3 of you and put you in a room and we are going to talk about somebody and we're concerned about what might happen, I would think that most of us would be like, okay, let's only do what we need to do and make sure, I don't know, call a welfare check on him or something as it comes out or whatever, do whatever, right? We wouldn't try to be like, oh, is that the possibility? Like what more can we pile on? And not saying that that is what they were thinking or what happened, but the fact that Jeffree went on to send these text messages, that if that were me, I don't know how much of that stuff is true, but regardless, if that were me, that would be panic inducing to be like, oh my God, like all of these people are going to come forward at once and they're going to say all these things about me, and it's going to be, you know, shameful, and it's going to ruin me, and it's going to end me, and all of this stuff. I'm sure plenty of people are like, yeah, but he would have deserved it. But that's not the point. The point is not whether or not he deserved it, but the point is somebody in this group had a concern that what she was putting out might be enough to push him over the edge. So why did Jeffree send those text messages as well? Like, honestly, is it because he genuinely, well, I was going to say, is it genuinely because he didn't believe that would happen? And then I just remembered that Shane Dawson, everybody's favorite armchair psychologist, said that he's a narcissist, so of course he wouldn't do that. But I don't believe that. I don't believe they necessarily believe that. I think that's probably what he said to kind of like make Tati just do it. So talking to James and exposing him still didn't change his behavior. No, it didn't. It didn't. But I didn't think she did. You could be right, but I thought she blindsided him with it. She did. I don't know. I hope that I did. I don't know if that's in response to me or somebody else. But to be clear, yeah, as far as I know, she blindsided him with this video. Nobody knew that it was coming except for Jeffree and Shane. My point is that prior to posting this video, she talked to Jeffree and Shane about this and expressed this concern. And even though somebody had that concern, let's be real, the most evil person in that group wanted to throw fuel on that fire. And so, like, the more I think about it, the more it's going to be hard to convince me that, for one, you can't convince me that Jeffree didn't have the same thought, right? Like, if Tati already put that out there, then by doing more, by laying it on thicker, Jeffree had to have thought, like, could this make, James push him to the edge? Could this? And he hit send. He hit send on both of those long text messages. He laid it all out, like scary, scary text messages, and then hit send at a time where Tati was afraid that James might hurt himself. So, if you guys need my help with mod duties, I'll keep a better eye on the chat. But yeah, Laura, what you're asking is something that I'm wondering. It's a big thing. That's why I'm saying speculation nation. This is a theory, something I'm wondering, but I wonder if Jeffree Star wanted James to eliminate himself from the community and from the world. And the more I look at the situation, the more I think that that is the case. And I'm not one who likes to speculate a lot about these people, but oh, there are more mods here. We have to remember Jeffree also is the one that allegedly told Trisha there's a balcony, go jump. My God. So yeah, it's not, my brain doesn't usually think such dark thoughts or such dark intentions of people. But I have heard more and more lately about how Jeffree Star, there are people with two different modes of thinking, right? There are some people who are like, this market is open. There's plenty of room for more people. It's, it's a creative market. Like, you can have plenty of people in here doing the same thing and business will still go on. And there are other people who say, like, no, for every competitor that comes in, that takes money away from my pockets. So, Jeffree, from what I understand, from what I've heard in recent months, has kind of expressed, from what I understand, the notion, the idea that every competitor within his market is taking money out of his pocket. So he needs to eliminate those competitors. And then, so thinking back on it, I don't know if any of you guys remember the other day, I tweeted, I said something like, do you guys remember when a bunch of beauty influencers were canceled because they insulted Jeffree Star in a photo? How bananas is that going back? That was 2018. That wasn't even 3 years ago. Some people are like, it's not being canceled. It is. Even if it's criminal stuff, you're being canceled if you are losing your platform. And even if you still have your subscribers, like, it's not like Game Childs can go and just upload a video right now and it'd be cool, a makeup tutorial. Like, there is some form of cancellation happening right now. So, and David Dobrik literally lost his sponsors and monetization. So, like, there's literal cancellations happening of certain things, of certain elements of people's platforms. Code James no longer works on the Morphe website, so that was canceled. So in a sense, like, we are experiencing cancellations, and what's scary is that each cancellation that comes up, the crimes are more egregious. It's starting to make me look back and be like, oh, should Shane Dawson have been canceled? Like, compared to what is happening, compared to the story about David Dobrik and Dom and their party, compared to what James Charles is continually doing with teenage boys, and we know that it's not over. We don't know. We're pretty sure that that's going to happen again. Like, these things are so egregious that I'm just like, looking back, you're like, why were those people canceled? They put up their middle fingers and they didn't say any names. They said something, paraphrasing, but I'm pretty close to what they said. They were like, bitch is just salty or whatever. Bitch is just angry because we're doing fine without him. Right? It's mean. It's not very nice. It's not a crime either. It is, at worst, it is bullying. But at the same time, when you talk about bullying, you have to consider, in order for somebody to be, I think that people on a certain status can bully those who are above their status, but you still have to keep that in mind. That Jeffree Star, who's at the top of the game, so much power, huge platform, the ability to set out a hit on anyone, and them saying like, well, you're just salty because I don't need you anymore. And then he goes on Shane's documentary and he's like, I gave them all of my resources, and then this is how they treat me. And it's like, bitch, like, was he really bullied? Like, was he? I think we were all on Jeffree's side for a minute because of Shane's documentary. And while perhaps Manny and Gabriel, Laura, and Nikita should have probably been called out, like, this is not good behavior, this is not a good example to set. Looking back, I'm like, they should not have been canceled for that. Disagree with me if you disagree with me, or agree with me. Also, I'm facing away from my mic. Sorry, guys. Bridget says Laura, I think, was rightfully held accountable for racism. She has grown and learned from what I can see. And that's fine. But then also that's the whole thing with cancel culture is, and it's not to say that every aspect of cancel culture is bad, but was it an issue about her racist comments in the past? No, that's not what it was about. It was about a picture that was insulting Jeffree Star, because, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, that we shined a light on some of the things that they've done in the past. The problem is, if you take almost any unproblematic person and then decide that we're going to cancel them over something that's not really like a cancelable offense, you can find dirt on that person. So, I mean, I don't think that Laura Lee got canceled because she was in this photo, and the reason that she was in this photo and got canceled is because she's a racist. Like, it's good for people to be held accountable for those things. But again, it's just, okay, just like Tati. She's upset about gummies, vitamins, brand partnerships, friendships, loyalty, and she made it about sexual predatory behavior. Did he need to be called out on that? Maybe, but did those two, was that appropriate? Did the punishment fit the crime? I don't think so. And so I'm curious what you guys are saying. So I don't know. Oh, I wasn't talking about what happened to Shane. Oh, I did say I wonder if Shane should have been canceled. I mean, the more of these influencers are getting canceled for things involving children, like actually, like what James is being canceled for, it does make me go back and question everybody else who's been canceled and for what. Shane, yeah, he needs to be gone for some time. But seeing him is the worst that could possibly be. When you think of that, like when you think of people, it's like, this is the worst it can be, because you guys know how I hate the whole 0-100 mentality. And we put Shane Dawson at 100 badness, 100 scumbag score. Then it's like, well, then guess what? James Charles can come along and be like, I can talk to a bunch of teenage boys, because like Shane Dawson is already maximum scumbag. So it's not like I can be any worse than him. It's kind of why I don't like that. Yeah, it started as Laura being called out, but it was Jeffree Stans who were digging in, found the problematic tweets, for sure. It's funny, though, how Nikita Jackson didn't get canceled, because she didn't speak up. She's the most problematic out of all of them. The two that I would say that really got canceled were Manny and Laura, and I think those are the two least problematic people. Is Laura Lee even white? Because she looks Hispanic to me. And I don't care if anybody gets offended by me saying that I'm Hispanic and I don't look like it and I look white. Yeah, boring, even racist maybe. Like, these things might all be true about them, but what I don't believe to be true is that they should have been canceled for insulting Jeffree in a picture. Like, that's just silly. She white? She just tan? So, yeah. So that was my theory. I started to think, oh shit. Like, Jeffree really is on a mission to bring down anybody who is a competitor in any way to his business. And so looking back, kind of going back in time, it was like, oh yeah, like the whole, Dramageddon, canceling those 4 beauty influencers was a big deal at the time, really big deal at the time. And that was just child's play when you consider the possibility, the speculation, the theory that perhaps Jeffree Star allegedly was trying to pressure James to take his own life with those text messages. And I don't think that's a far stretch. That's not a stretch I typically make. So, did I say Hispanic is a race? I was talking to a doctor's office today and they said, what's your race? And I said Hispanic. And then I was like, wait, I mean, white technically. I mean, they get it. Like, I don't want to get into it about that. There are people who identify as white. There are Hispanic people that don't identify as white, that maybe check a box that says white on a form, but they identify with their ethnicity or their nationality, whatever that would be. So you got to look past the tan, the fillers, the makeup. She ain't got those features naturally. Well, yeah, but I guess that's the whole point of like cultural appropriation and doing all those things, is that they make you look like you have a certain, genealogy that you might not. Yeah, and I wasn't, Jordana, I'm not saying that because she is or was not, or maybe I thought she was Hispanic, that she's not racist. That's not what I was getting at all. I don't remember why I even asked if she was Hispanic. Yeah, Jeffree said people to off themselves on Twitter. He said that we found video of him talking to people like that. It's not a far stretch. It really is not. So I was going to look at your genealogy. In terms of what my patrons were saying on this, because we're already almost at an hour. So Bridget, I'm going to read what you said. Bridget had a lot to say, but I thought it was insightful. So I'm going to kind of like read through it as quickly as possible. Bridget says, as for additional thoughts I have on the J-Star situation, why he pushed so hard for James Charles's downfall. Really, I think he's just a vindictive person who, as Shame, Bridget calls him Shame, as Shame said, wanted to see a competitor fail and fall. The James Charles palette was a huge success, which also, that just reminded me, remember when Shane and Jeffree were getting ready to market the conspiracy palette, there was a conflict of interest with Morphe because they wanted to release it at the same time that James was releasing his holiday palette, correct? Let me know if I'm right or wrong. And so that only kind of furthers the motive to eliminate James as a competitor. So she says it was a huge success. I'm not sure how it compares to Jeffree Star's palettes, but I know it sold out multiple times. That would make Jeff uncomfortable, especially since his stuff was also sold at Morphe. It also wouldn't surprise me if Nate's brother was uncomfortable with interactions with James, and Jeff could have been made aware of those things. But why he didn't follow through with actually talking about those accusations and instead never doing this again, or whatever BS apology video came from the bi-sister stitch, I'm not sure. Same goes for other accusations Jeff said he had heard. I'm not sure how true any are, and since those victims haven't all spoken up, I'm not sure what happened. The fact that Jeff weaponized those accusations, though, against James through text and behind his back, so to speak, on podcasts and showing other people is just gross. I agree. It doesn't help anyone. If there's proof that James did something illegal or just egregious in any way, like, you do something so that it doesn't happen anymore. That he didn't do anything to prevent that happening. Let's see. Come on, scroll button, work for me. Let's see. Did we have a couple more people? We got I think Leah provided a link. Let me just read the title. It says it's an Insider article. Is it a Cat 10 Barge original? Jeffree Star accusers say the makeup mogul has a history of sexual ... probably predatory behavior. Predation. Yep, it does say. So there you go. That kind of supports the idea that perhaps he and Dobby had mutual dirt on each other and therefore decided to squash the beef. Speculation nation. That is where we are residing for this hour and a half. Also, a suggestion for the intro notes from basically a podcast. If you say it's every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, folks might be more likely to tune in next time. So sorry if I didn't make that clear, guys. I should make that clear with my intro notes. Yeah, and then also Morgan says Jeffree Star has dirt on everyone, specifically for the time when they turn on him. Yeah, everyone says that. Everyone in the industry says that. So why not believe it? I'm also going to, before going to the chat to see what you guys have to say, somebody did send in a question regarding Jeffree Star. I don't think it's regarding this exact topic, though, but this person says a common theme lately has been, so since Jeffree and Shane were correct about James, we have to forgive them, and the conversation devolves from there. Two truths can exist at the same time. Jeffree can be manipulative and cruel. Jeffree can also be correct about James Charles. Ditto on Shane. Are they people in glass houses throwing stones? Sure. Does that mean they were incorrect about James? No. Does that mean they're wonderful people? Also no. Yep, just a statement that is I agree with. Like, we've got to stop thinking that people are all right or all wrong. It's not how the world works. Are you all right all the time? No? Does that mean you're all wrong all the time? No? Then neither are these other people. Abby, I don't think you should feel bad for having looked up to James. You didn't know what you didn't know, you know? Let's see. Sorry, I'm looking through the chats, but I'm not sure exactly what to read. I didn't get a lot of emails or oh, there's a super chat, so there's something to read. It's in pounds. Why do I feel like it's Alistair? Scrolling. Alistair. Thank you for the super chat, Alistair. Let's see. She says they are all toxic people, and some of the crappiest people around don't understand how people can look at them as influencers and forgive any of them. They're all toxic people, and some of the crappiest people around don't understand how people can look at them as influencers and forgive any of them. I mean, of course, there are always going to be people who forgive them, but in general, our people. I mean, for me, in order for James to see any sort of redemption, like I think he would have to go through some serious rehabilitation. Like, I am always willing to give somebody a redemption if they humbly, like, and truthfully talk about like what their problems were and like do the work to actually get better. And we never know. You never know whether or not a person's changed, but there are signs, and we haven't seen those signs from any of these people. And honestly, same with Tati. Like, even though she's the least problematic of these four, she blamed whatever she did, she blamed on the other two. And that's why I get it. I get into argument. I don't get into arguments because I don't really engage past giving my opinion, but people do criticize me for this. But like, I don't give Tati a pass. I don't. I believe her that she was probably pressured, but I'm not going to buy that by sister as a video, as a movement, as anything, was not something that she needs to take responsibility for as well. And I also don't buy that now that James Charles is in trouble for these very egregious crimes, that stuff just doesn't matter. Like that she wasn't wrong in doing that. She still was. So, bye, Cassie. So, let me see. Third Gear says, I think Jeffree here is just a brilliant Machiavellian. I don't think he holds any real beliefs other than that he should be a top dog. Yeah, that's the vibe I get too. I said that David Dobrik was Machiavellian, and I think a person can be and still have a heart. I think that Jeffree Star is Machiavellian and if he has a heart, it's much less than anybody else we've talked about. First of all, I'm not any sort of mental health professional, so it's not my job to be like, I think that so-and-so should be diagnosed with this and that. But like, if there's anybody where I've been like, is that a sociopath? Then, I wonder with Jeffree, but at the same time, that word is overused. And I also read somewhere or heard somewhere that like sociopaths typically aren't that successful in life because they tend to burn bridges a lot. What else? Is there anything in Patreon? We only had the super chat from Alistair. Let's see, Twitter. I don't know. I wonder if people are even like curious as to like, what the hell did I just tweet about? I did say it was in reference to basically a podcast, so maybe those people came here. If they were even wondering what that was about. So that's not loading. Yes, it is. Trying to get to that post of mine to see if there are any responses, but I don't. Twitter on desktop is not fun. So let's go to Twitter on my phone. So I did post those screenshots of Jeffree's text messages, and I got 8 hearts. No comments. But there is something in Patreon. I don't know if you want me to give your name, but somebody said you had an ask in the chat if you'd be discussing the allegation against Jake Paul. In a sense, yes, I am. Thank you, Maud, for bringing that to my attention. But I'm really focusing on Keemstar's response to it. I mean, what Jake did was not okay. It was awful. It was terrible. It was the behavior of a monster. I'm not entirely surprised. I'm just not. Not just because he's a douche, not just because he seems like that guy from high school, but because of all those things plus power and the things that power has done to people in this community. And it's funny because people from the OG YouTube scene, we saw this from Shane earlier on where he didn't understand how Jake Paul had everything he had, and he didn't understand how Jeffree Star has everything he has. I don't consider Jeffree Star OG YouTube. Trisha has a certain humility or groundedness to her. I know that's weird to say about Trisha Paytas because she has been known to be so out there, but she still has a sense of morality and right and wrong and how not to overpower people. But these new age influencers, they get this power and they just think well, this is currency and I can use it for anything that I want. Power is currency to these people. And I think that in a lot of these situations, that power is being used as currency to get people to behave sexually. So I do believe that James Charles is guilty of that. And I think Jake Paul is used to being able to use that currency and cash that out with girls he brings into his room. And she didn't want it, and so he didn't pay for it. He took it. That's the best way I can put it. Let's see. Anything else? Okay, those are all the patron messages. Those are all the emails. You guys can definitely send in a lot of these questions to the email ahead of time. That would be like a surefire way of, well, not 100% surefire way of knowing that I'll address it, because sometimes if it's not related to the topic or I don't catch it soon enough, but I'll typically give you guys the topic ahead of time so you can send in your messages and let me know what you think, or let me know what you want me to address. Let me see. The best thing that ever happened to Trish was frenemies. Helped her become more grounded. Totally. I just retweeted something. There was some article. I want to read it. But it says, the article says, it looks like this. All you can see is Ethan and Trisha. But the title says, Frenemies with Trisha Paytas and H3H Reproductions has gone from being a drama podcast to the journey of two people gradually coming to understand each other. Which I think is awesome. I think that's true, but I think they really came to understand each other and then use their power for good. So as soon as we walk through, so I don't want to just read through the chat and then end up just being, as Ethan would put it, the queen of dead air. So this may be a short one here. But yeah, I have a weird feeling about what Jeffree Star's intentions are with other people and how disposable he sees them, including James Charles. And this is a situation where, yes, James Charles is a scumbag. He is the number one scumbag at the top of anyone's mind right now. Maybe Jake Paul today, but it doesn't mean that. But he does not deserve to have somebody pressure him to off themselves. Nobody deserves that. And that's how I think. That's what I believe. All right, guys. Somebody says they love Jeffree Charles. I accidentally said Jake Charles a couple times when I was recording today, talking about Jake Paul. Yeah. I guess if you're watching this in the playback, let me know what you think in the comments that wasn't said here. Do people watch the live playback or the live chat when you watch the playback? I'm curious. Yeah, I think James could face legal trouble too. It all depends on whether or not those parents decide to take action. Water gang and whatnot. Let's see. I've got just enough for this last one before I sign off. If you can call it that. It just really just wet my mouth enough to say goodbye. But yeah. You watched the playback when you missed, or did you read the chat though, Lolly, when you did? Sorry, I was saying, do people watch the playbacks? And then I meant to say, do people watch the live chat with the playback? I haven't had time to really sit down and do that when I want to. Desi said, I love basically a podcast. Thank you. Oh, wait, there's a super chat. Annie said, power is currency when your job is influencing people. Thank you. Would you like to become a member of my team? Because yes, that is one of the messages that I want to push out, that power is currency. That is how David Dobrik does what he does. So it's such a touchy topic, because we want to absolve anybody who's on the receiving end of that power, right? The person who has less power, we want to see them as 0% guilty. And again, it's that 0, 100. What David is 100. As an example, he paid off Tati and Corinna to use that footage of her giving him a blowjob in the back of the Tesla, right? So because David Dobrik is a powerful one, because he's the shitbag and all of that, then he's 100% guilty and they're 0% guilty, when in fact there was an exchange. It wasn't just power, he gave actual money to them. So if you talk about an actual transaction like that, where he says, okay, what's the amount? $5,000. Okay, $5,000 means that you've given me this clip to put in my video. Then from that perspective, it's a 50-50. Nobody is more guilty than the other. But the fact that he bears this power is what puts him, I think, more in the guilty bucket than the others. And for sure, when these influencers are faced with their fans and they get their fans to do things for them, to do things for free, to perform sexual favors that maybe they wouldn't otherwise want to, anything that an influencer uses their power to get what they want. We even hear about certain influencers acting like divas and bullying people and intimidating people, sending hate mobs. These are all abuses of power, and those abuses of power are not always used as currency, because sometimes it's used to be like, hey, I'm a big name YouTuber, and you can maybe come to my party, like I think David was trying to do with those girls. Come to my party, you can be in my vlog. And so that's an exchange of power. It is currency. And then those people get something out of it. Whether or not that's okay is not what I'm talking about. They're getting something out of it. But there's some times where they use their power and the other person gets nothing out of it, and that's especially shitty. Like a hate mob. Wait, somebody else in pounds. Phoenix, hi. Phoenix Light says, I've always had a bad feeling about James Charles. He seemed like a completely narcissistic person. Something always seemed off about him. Same. I wonder if it showed when I did my history of controversies, scandals and controversies on James, because I didn't have enough. I had data, obviously, because I did the research on what he had done, but I didn't follow him closely enough to really get a vibe off of him. But I did say, I do think he needed a humbling experience, because his ego does seem kind of through the roof. Kind of the way that he went off on Netflix on Marlene Estelle, because, side note, sorry. This is where I'm like slumber party, tea, let's talk. Side note, that whole thing with Marlene Estelle, where they were like, Marlene Estelle got a deal with Netflix to do a documentary on the beauty community, and James Charles was mad because he had written out a whole outline for a docuseries or something. Time out. Marlene Estelle did not get a documentary. Marlene Estelle was used as a source and might have like given some like talking points, but she was used as a source and was interviewed for one episode of, I forget what it was, broken unbroken broken. I don't remember what the series was called on Netflix, but it was one episode of a series and she was interviewed. Let's see. Thank you for that, Phoenix. I agree with you. Something just always seemed off. I also think that the younger we are, the more we need to like just keep in mind that we still have some learning to do. And you guys have heard me here you guys have heard me say that a couple times. I've had people mean tweet at me because I said that, but if your head gets that big by the time you're 21, that fall is going to be really hard. And that's what's happening. Philip DeFranco is getting demonetized or demonized, or both. He said he was suppressed because of his Jake Paul video, which is why I'm concerned about mine. Yeah, like Alicia said, she had like 2 minutes of airtime in the whole episode, and it was like an hour long. Yeah, it wasn't that big of a deal. But the way he went off on her in Netflix, like he was entitled to that. Calm down. Like, who the hell can say that they are entitled to that? Maybe somebody who's been on the scene for a very long time, like Candy Johnson, maybe. Don't people still like her? All right. Logan is just pooping in to say hi. That's funny. I'm glad that I saw that. And I appreciate you pooping in. Okay. I can't scroll anymore. Okay. Oh yeah, the fake yearbook photo or whatever that didn't actually happen. I think Morphe might be on their way to dropping James, but I also don't keep up with the beauty community. In fact, like when the beauty community took off on YouTube, I stopped caring much about my own makeup. I used to do like wedding makeup, and then like that happened, and I was just like, forget it. Everybody's competing in this market. Alistair, again, hey. I know we don't always agree on topics, Alicia, but I have great respect for you. Alistair, I want to make this really clear, and that's why I'm looking directly at the camera. Because I know in the last one, I thanked you for the discourse. Like, I thanked you for saying, I was like, we have a good bit of differing opinions. We have to agree on some very fundamental things because you watch my videos, you come back, right? But you do express when you disagree with something, and I would guess that you probably express more often than when you disagree, because that's usually what sparks conversations. Other people have pointed out to me, they're like, yeah, we don't tell you every time we agree with something you say. We're usually just like looking like, yep, agreed. So I said that I appreciated that you do speak your mind, even if you're disagreeing with me, you do so respectfully. And then when it came out of my mouth, I was like, fuck, that sounded like patronizing or passive aggressive, and like that's not how I meant it. I meant it very sincerely. So I have a total amount of a huge amount of respect for you. Agree. I don't agree with everything you say either, but you're respectful. You come back. You're good to me. You're good to the people in my audience, and so like I hope you keep coming back. I hope you keep engaging in these conversations. Disagree with me where you disagree with me, and give me something to talk about. And now the mods are going off. Candy Johnson, she was a good egg, huh? Yeah, we do stand differing viewpoints, and we all have them in our Patreon. We have them. We have disagreements all the time. The point is having respect when you do disagree. Don't call people names. Don't shame people for what they believe. And that is the point where I got to do my due diligence, not due diligence, because that's like research, do my duties as a YouTuber and just let you guys know that I do have a Patreon if you weren't aware. Let's see. if you weren't aware, I do have a Patreon. These people with the blue wrenches are my patrons that more or less that have been patrons for 6 months or more. Lolly, I don't know if you've been a patron for more than 6 months and or if you want to be a mod. So make sure that that's something you guys let me know. If you guys have been a patron for longer than 6 months, if you're active on Patreon, I would kind of hate to just be like, yeah, sure, to somebody who like we forgot was even there. But our Patreon is super, 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 super fucking awesome. It's gotten to the point where like people form their own little friend groups. Some people find best friends. There are absolutely, I've at least identified 2 people who consider each other their best friends, and they met there. And there's various channels. Let me read off the different channels we have just for fun. So we have like when you join the Patreon, we have a couple of channels. There's rules and guidelines, which they're the big rule is just don't be a dick. And then there's an intros channel, of course, where you can come and introduce yourself. People welcome you and all that. There's a channel that we have called I Go By, and it's a very important channel. And that is where you let us know your pronouns, what you'd like us to call you, and then what you go by across different platforms, because otherwise I will ask you, hey, what, like if I see your name on YouTube and you're like, like Happy Girl 123, and then I don't know Happy Girl 123 in Patreon, I would be like, where do I know you, Happy Girl? So intros, or I Go By, lets us know like what your different names are, but also lets me know what your Instagram and Twitter handles are, because part of being in the Fiverr plus $5 and up tier, I follow you either on Instagram and Twitter, or 2 Twitters and 2 Instagrams, if that makes sense. Like you get 2 follows on Instagram or Twitter. Then we'll call our bread and butter. We have different topics. We have General Mayhem, which is where we just go and chat about really anything. That's just open for discussion. We have a Harry Potter channel because, we have a lot of people who join the Patreon for Year of Harry Potter. In case you want to know where that is, we are currently working on the 2nd book. We have the 2nd book in not this week, but another one. So if you want to join, you can still make the meeting for book 2, which is happening in a week and a half, a little more than a week and a half, almost 2 weeks. We have a channel called Post Video Discussion, and that's where after my video goes out, my patrons can go in there and chat about like what they thought of the video, points that came up, things that they thought, things they agree with, disagree with. And then we have another channel called YouTube and Twitter, and that's where we just go about like what's going on Twitter, what's going on with YouTubers, things that we see. Then we have a channel for our clubs. So we do have book club, and we have something called Spirit Club. And so book club's pretty obvious. Like we all read a book and then we have meetings where we talk about the book. Spirit Club is one where we all have people of different varying ideologies get together and we just talk about spiritual things and religious things. It's not church or anything like that. It's in no way bashing any ideology. It's really just kind of seeing how like people tend to agree on a lot of the basic ideologies, but we kind of talk about all the nuances of that. There's also a channel for basically a podcast where you can go and drop your thoughts on whatever the topic is, and I will probably read it on this podcast. That is basically a podcast. And then we have other channels that are for the self and support. So one really important channel is called Vent and Support. And that is where you can go when you're going through it, where you're going through something. And you can just get it out. You can just say, hey, I don't need anything. I just want to put this out there into the world. I did that. And I let you guys know last week that I wasn't doing that great. I have not been doing that great lately. I've been dealing with a lot of grief. But I went into the Vent and Support channel and I put that out there, and then the patrons came there to support me and helped me come to the realization that I can call my mom now and invite my mom up. And so now my mom's coming to visit this weekend with my grandma. And I've also decided to take off some time from work this week. So that was helpful. There's another channel where people discuss wellness and beauty. There's a spirituality and religion channel. There's a channel for, or not for, but just titled LGBTQIA and allies. We also have a room or a channel called The Rooms. That is a locked room. That is for people who are sober or have some sort of connection to either the sober community or somebody dealing with addiction. So kind of like sober people and Al-Anons, so we can talk about those issues. And then otherwise, we have creativity, gaming and media, and crime and woo-woo. That's a fun one where you can talk about true crime, or you can talk about supernatural stuff. And I know that the patrons love to talk about tarot in that channel. And then otherwise, you have like announcements and boring stuff like that. We have some voice channels as well. So that's kind of a rundown on the Patreon. It's a ton of fun. That's all to show you that there are plenty of channels to have different kind of conversations. There are people who hang out in these channels, but not those channels. And there are people who hang out in these channels and not those channels. And, you know, you kind of build your friendships based on kind of like those conversations you're having. So it's really awesome. I have no idea what everyone was saying while I was explaining the whole damn Patreon, which I've never done before. So if that was annoying, I am sorry. Oh, but yes, to be clear, it's $5 and up for the Discord, access to the clubs, early access to videos if I get them out early, and then the follows on social media and stuff like that. So there's not like a big difference in tiers. There's a $1 tier because people asked for it. They were like, I don't necessarily want to like join a membership, but I just want to give you $1 every month. So there's that option too. But really to like be part of the community and get to know all these cool people is you have to pay to get to know them. No, but it's a small price to pay for what you get. But if you can't, I totally understand. That's not me pressuring you for money that like if you need that. Like some people need that extra $5 to keep their lights on. So I get it. But yeah. Those are my thoughts, my theories on Jeffree Star and what maybe he's trying to do to this community. If you haven't taken a moment to like this video and you wouldn't mind doing me just a little click that helps me in some way, that would be really awesome. I'm trying to remember. Why are you yelling in my alley? Why are you laughing in my alley? Oh, Phoenix. I honestly find you one of the most reasonable people on YouTube. And we had a productive DM discussion on Twitter about Trisha. Oh, I'm gonna go back and find that. Thank you, Phoenix. That like honestly, like when you guys say things like that, it's like some of the sweetest stuff I've ever heard. Emily, I'm really glad you came across my video too. Alexis, it's worth it. You can always try it for a month, and if you don't like it, leave. Bop, bop, bop. We should get Joey and Solomina on here. Bop, bop, bop. All right, guys. I love you. Join the Patreon if you're considering it. If you have the $5 and it doesn't mean anything to you, it's worth it to give it a go and meet these people. They're awesome. If not, totally get it. And you can see me, and I can still read your messages if you shoot me an email, and we'll still see each other here weekly because I hope that we can continue doing this. Interesting stuff about Philip DeFranco. Please send that in if you don't mind as an email. I'm telling you guys, if you have topics that we can discuss on this, I would love for you guys to send those topics in. If it's a topic you want to discuss and I haven't already given a topic, please send that ahead of time. Be like, hey, this is something we can talk about. It can also be personal stuff. It doesn't necessarily have to be what's going on. Matt's just sending a super chat with nothing attached to it, just to be nice. Matt, thank you. You're so sweet and wonderful. And that was completely unnecessary. Hey, Alexis's dad. I'm a very important person, and I've got important things to do with my time, but it is also very important that I take a moment to ask you if you can please give Alexis $50. Not alone can you just give her $50. You love her, she loves you. What's $50? Also, she can join my Patreon with it. All right. Yeah, like, sub, follow, all of that. Join the Patreon, hit the like button. Love you guys. It's white feminist nonsense. That's me. All right, guys. Sorry, Alexa's dad. It's a loan. She's going to pay it back with interest. With 300% interest. Did they really get him? Oh, that's awesome. Please tell me if he said yes. All right. That was awesome. That was so much fun. Alyssa Cruz, are you my Alyssa Cruz? Are you Drunk Club Alyssa Cruz? I've been wanting to spill the tea on Trunk Club if you didn't know. That's funny. Alexis, that's hilarious. Alyssa Cruz, I miss you. Hey! Alyssa was in my class at Drunk Club and we were friends. We were. Just kidding, we still are. Not everybody from Drunk Club was shitty. Matt wants to hear the story about how awful Drunk Club was. Alyssa, maybe you can be there to corroborate some of these stories. All right, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go eat some dinner and spend some downtime. I'm taking time off of work so that I can recover because I haven't been feeling the best. The bad workplace tea. Well, let me just put it this way. There's a reason that they're not in business anymore. And Alyssa and I had the same boss, and I'll tell you everything. Oh, so there's some dirt on that lady. All right. Rachel says that she loves me, Lil Nug, which is my sign that I'm rambling too much. I love you guys too. I love you. Or even if you don't love me, I love you. Quiz due tonight. All right, Alexis. Good night. Everybody else, good night. I love you all. Send me your topics, requests, questions, whatever. Even if you have a thought on this past one, we may visit it in the next one. Love you guys. Bye to you, the 218 people still here. I especially love you. And the people who had to go. All right. Love you. Bye. Good night and goodbye.